in the New Testament, in Ephesians chapter 2, which does indeed describe a composite man who has access to, and in fact is, the temple of the God. And so here we are in Ephesians chapter 2, and in verse 11, it talks about people of the nations, and that they were strangers to the covenants of the promises, and alienated from the state of Israel. So it's talking about Gentiles and Jews. And it states that they are now in union with Christ together. Both Gentiles and Jews are in union with Christ. And what I would like to bring to your attention is where it says that by means of his flesh he abolished the enmity. In other words, there's no reason for enmity between Jews and Gentiles if they're all Christians. And so he says here that he might create the two peoples in union with himself into what? Into one new man. So here we have one new man created out of two peoples. So understand that this one new man is a composite man. And it says here that he might fully reconcile both peoples. Okay, and now it's referring to that one new man into one body, one new man, to God through the torture state, because he has killed off the enmity by means of himself. And he came and declared the good news of peace to you, the ones far off, and peace to those near, the new man. And so, notice here it says, you are no longer strangers and alien residents. So he's speaking to the Gentiles here, that they're no longer strangers to the Jewish Christians. They are both the same. They're one man. Fellow citizens of the holy ones and members of the house of God. Here it says that this man, remember the one new man, is being built up upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, while Jesus Christ himself is the foundation cornerstone of his temple. And in union with him, the whole building, the temple, is being harmoniously joined together and growing into what? Growing into a holy temple for God. In union with him, you two are being built up together into a place for God to inhabit by Spirit. And so, what is the temple of the God? Well, it's Jesus Christ, who is the cornerstone, the apostles, who are the foundation, and the prophets, and the one new man is the holy temple growing on top of that foundation. So now we have indeed identified a man described who has access to the temple of God, and this man is not an individual. This one new man is made up of multiple people. This is very important to understand if you hope to identify the man of lawlessness. So an important thing here for a Christian to understand is that the holy temple, the temple of the God, is not a brick and mortar temple. It is a temple made of Jesus Christ, the apostles and prophets, and this one new man who's being built upon that foundation and growing into the holy temple. Immediately before Jesus Christ returns, you would hope that holy temple would be a righteous place. And yet, if we go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, immediately before Jesus Christ returns, that temple is anything but a holy place, because that man of lawlessness has lifted himself up above a God and sit down in the temple of the God. And so as a Christian, you would not want to be deceived by this deception, because if you are, the Apostle Paul indicates that those people will be perishing. So, do you now have incentive to watch through the rest of this video? So now, if you do understand that it's very important for any Christian to identify this man of lawlessness, then it puts you in a terrible predicament. Because the church you are going to will not want to hear what you have to say. So imagine, please, that you do see the truth, and you have faith in the truth, and that you can see and understand the mystery of this lawlessness, and you have seen the man of lawlessness and understand who he is, then what are you going to do? Are you not obliged to, within your own church, identify and point to the man of lawlessness? And these will be the ones leading your church, the ones who want you to believe that everything is just great. And so, as a person who can see this man of lawlessness, who speaks up within his church and says, listen, the temple of God has been profaned by a man of lawlessness who has lifted himself up above a God, Jesus Christ, then you will not be welcome in that church. So please spend time contemplating what is going to happen to a person who actually sees through the unrighteous deception. Understand the predicament this puts a righteous person in who can see the truth. So imagine the kind of stir it would cause in your congregation if you brought this to the attention of your Christian brothers and pointed out this fact to them. Would you not then be hated for having done that? In fact, you would probably no longer be welcome in that church. And I'd like to bring your attention to an end-time scripture in Isaiah, in the Old Testament, the last chapter of Isaiah, chapter 66. And notice, please, what happens to the ones who can see the truth. And hopefully what I've described to you, the condition of Christianity, makes you tremble at the thought. And notice the scripture in Isaiah 66 and verse 5. Hear the word of Jehovah, you men who are trembling at his word. And so have I made you tremble from describing the condition of Christianity immediately before Jesus Christ returns? And if you bring this up inside your own church, what are your Christian brothers going to do to you? It describes exactly what they're going to do here. Your brothers that are hating you, that are excluding you by reason of my name, said, may God be glorified. And so these people will continue to believe right to the end that God is being properly worshipped. And yet notice, if you are indeed one of these men who are trembling at his word, and indeed you have every right to tremble after what I've explained to you and what the Apostle Paul said would happen immediately before Jesus Christ returns, then what will indeed happen at the end? He must also appear. Who? Jesus Christ will appear in his Father's name with rejoicing on your part. And who will be brought to shame? They are the ones that will be brought to shame. The ones that are hating you and that are excluding you by reason of my name. And this is Jehovah, God, speaking to Isaiah. And what is God's name? Jehovah. So, are there actual men anywhere in the world today being excluded from a Christian congregation by reason of God's name? Jehovah? Is there any Christian organization today who exclude righteous men who are trembling at his word? Think carefully about this. Notice also what happens next. Immediately after verse 5, there is a sound of uproar out of the city, a sound out of the temple. If this is an end-time scripture, that temple is the Christian temple. And what happens to that temple that has been undermined and profaned by the man of lawlessness, the son of destruction? Notice, it is the sound of Jehovah repaying what is deserved to his enemies. Now, I should probably go on here in Isaiah and show to you that during this time, these men who are trembling at his word, that it won't be a pleasant time. It will be a terrible, awful predicament. And the next verse, in verse 7, should give you some comfort if you are indeed a Christian person in this predicament, and yet I don't believe there are very many men who have recognized this. It says here that before she began to come into labor pain, she gave birth, and so this will be a painful time. Before birth pangs could come to her, she gave deliverance to a male child. Who has heard of a thing like this? Who has seen things like this? Will a lamb be brought forth with labor pains in one day? No, it will take some time. Will a nation be born at one time? It will take some time. For Zion has come into labor pains as well as given birth to her sons. And so these sons are the ones trembling at his word. And so where will these sons be? They will be excluded. They will not be in your Christian organization. Please understand this. These sons, the holy ones, the ones who have faith in the truth, will be hated and excluded. And after what you've heard me describe, the condition of Christianity, please understand why. Now, some people might object and say that, no, this is not talking about the Christian temple or about Christian brothers being hated and excluded, because this is an Old Testament scripture. And so if you believe that, I would like to overturn your objection by taking you to a place where Jesus Christ describes the same kind of thing as identified it by Isaiah. And that's in John chapter 16